Hello and welcome to the Race for the Title, a Sports World special with me, Caroline Barker. We're live on BBC World Service Radio, and if you want to watch us in the studio, we're also live online. You can find us at bbc.com/sport, and if that wasn't enough, on connected TV for UK users only. My guest for the hour, a defensive lineup to be proud of, former Liverpool defender Mark Lawrenson, and a defender in his own right at Chelsea and Jamaica, Frank Sinclair. Hello to you both.
How you doing, Caroline?
It's a pretty special 24 hours we've got coming up. Mark, it's been an incredible season, not least because right up until this moment we've not really known where it's going.
Yeah, I think most definitely. But I just think that the whole league, when you look at it, apart from, you probably say, the likes of Southampton and Newcastle, who've generally known their fate for the last 3 or 4 months, nearly every other team in the league's not known if they're going to be relegated or they've got a chance of actually winning the league. So to be so long or so elongated for the Premier League's point of view, I think that's great.
And Frank, for the players as well, I mean, those nerves building up to these final 24 hours. We will talk about the race for the title a little bit later on, but this build-up as well for players, it is unimaginable.
Yeah, it must be very exciting from, you know, the likes of, you know, the Liverpool, Man City, still with a chance of winning the league realistically. So, you know, they'll be going to bed tonight, you know, not waiting to get going the next day. So
will they sleep?
Well, some will, some won't, you know, depending on the characters. I mean, I used to sleep quite well before big games, but you got some that don't get any sleep. But I don't think it affects your performance. The adrenaline gets you through football, especially, you know, at a time where there's so much to play for.
Well, here's hoping you don't doze off in the next hour or so. More about the race for the title in the second half of the show when we welcome BBC World News to the programme. But what about the picture at the bottom end of the table? Let's take a look. And after Sunderland's victory earlier this week, the teams relegated are all confirmed, bar the shouting, with a game left to play. Norwich, Cardiff and Fulham. Let's hear from the managers now on their feelings going into the last match of the season.
It was always clear that I coming here to build up a new team, because before I came here it was clear for everybody that it doesn't work so well, so we have to change something, and to do the changes I come here. So for me it was always no doubt that I've been here next season.
There's loads of things I've learned, because you learn about your own stuff, your own players, the whole club. So of course there's things that I know now that I wouldn't even dream of knowing 4.5 months ago. So, but that's a learning curve of both on and off the pitch.
It hurts. It hurts a lot. From myself, from the players, supporters are hurting. Everyone is, as you would understand. Premier League's the best league in the world. We've just slipped out of it, and you've got to face up to that. It's tough.
We love a mathematical possibility. It could still happen for Norwich. They need one big swing, though, don't they? They need West Brom to lose, about 17 goal swingers as well. It's not going to happen, is it?
No, but, you know, the thing about the daft thing about the thing as well, the 3 teams, well, they've had 7 managers. In fact, you could say if after tomorrow Neil Adams doesn't get the job full-time and they appoint another manager, that's 8 managers, which tells you something about, you know, why they are in the predicament that they are. And I still maintain, and Steve Bruce always said this when he got Hull into the league, which was, you're only as good in the Premier League as your strikers. Look at the strikers for those 3 teams, and now you see why they are where they are.
That's Norwich's big problem, hasn't it, Frank, this season? Just not
scoring
enough
goals. Yeah, absolutely, and obviously leaking at the other end as well. You know, they combine with each other when you've had a poor season. And, you know, it's interesting, Mark said that the managers they've gone through, and, you know, the original sackings that they made, you know, maybe they look back on it and think maybe I should have given the managers the likes of Chris Hughton the opportunity, you know, to try and turn things around at the club.
Would you have done that, Mark?
No, sack Chris Hughton. No, just left him in charge. The other thing is, I feel a bit sorry for Norwich because last season they bought Van Wolfswinkel thinking he's going to be OK. So they had forward planning, Hooper, Elmander, but hardly any of them have scored. That's been the real problem. The 3 basically have all failed.
What about Fulham? Felix Magath, he's certainly a character. We need a few more of those in the Premier League. But is he the right man, now that they are relegated, to get them back up again? Is that building for the future for Fulham?
I don't know about that because, you know, his experience experience is not in this country. So, you know, and obviously he came into the Premier League with a lack of experience, and, you know, undoubtedly he'll be the same in the Championship as well. And it's two different tasks, trying to keep a team in the Premiership and then trying to get a team from the Championship into the Premiership is a total different kettle of fish. And whether he's prepared for that or the right man to do that will be, you know, we'll see how long he gets next season.
I think what's interesting with Fulham is they've planned for relegation. I think all the players that they signed, I think they've got something like a 33% cut in wages, so that gives them a chance with the parachute payment. And I think also, and you probably know better than I, Frank, but I mean, obviously the youth team are good because they played your lot in the final just last week, but I think their under-21s are supposedly be really good players, and they've started to blood some, so maybe going into the Championship isn't the worst thing to happen to Fulham, as long as they give themselves a chance to come back into the league as quickly as possible.
And transitions off the pitch as well for Fulham, with a relatively new owner coming in too. It's got to take shape. You've got to have time to get your feet under the table and other such cliches, but really look at the team and the setup as a whole. Yeah,
but I think the problem, Caroline, is that, you know, Felix Magath is the third manager. I mean, when they brought Rennie Mullenstein in as a coach with Martin Jol, you're kind of thinking, well, what sort of conversation did the chief executive actually have with Rennie Mullenstein? Was it, by the way, if we bomb under Martin Jol, you're going to be the next manager? I thought that was really, really strange. And I think
it's happened before.
Yeah, it has happened before. And good news for Rennie Mullenstein, thinking, well, if it doesn't work with Martin Jol, I'm going to be the manager. Just talking about Mullenstein, I think he's going back to Old Trafford.
Really?
I think he'll come in with Van Gaal probably as early as next week.
We'll talk Manchester United in just a few moments, but let's look at Cardiff then, because there's a club that blinked, took the decision to get a new manager in Solskjaer, and again, another one of those that you could call both ways, Frank.
Yeah, difficult for Solskjaer because it's hard to, you know, view him as a manager, what he came into, and, you know, the opportunity was obviously there for him to turn things around, but off the pitch, the amount of things that were going wrong off the pitch as reflected in their performances, and you know, it's been a tough one for him, and, you know, the owners come in and he's changed things and riled the fans a bit about the, you know, the colour of the kit and stuff like that, and it's gone downward spiral since then.
But on that point, Malky Mackay's come out this week and apologised unreservedly to Vincent Tan, the owner, trying to make things up there, I guess. He's had a settlement and they now move on.
But the thing about that, Caroline, is Malky Mackay didn't have to apologise for the way the team were playing, because there was nothing wrong with the way Cardiff were playing, and I would maintain that if Malky Mackay still had been in charge of Cardiff, they'd have stayed in the league. Hey, Vincent Tan, it's his money, you know, the man with all the gold makes all the rules, which is absolutely fine. But for me, realistically, I think Vincent Tan is the cause of them being relegated, not so much Malky Mackay.
Well, who bounces back then out of those three?
I don't think you back any one of the three, to be honest. Well, only because the Championship is just quite honestly the worst and hardest league to get out of. I mean, look who's going to come up this year already, Leicester and Burnley. Burnley, how have they done that? They've done that because of Ings and Vokes in terms of all the goals. So, as we said before about, you know, it's all about goals at any particular division, but you wouldn't look at all three and say they are certainties to be promoted next season.
Important, though, Frank, isn't it, for the Premier League and for their relationship with the Championship, that those teams that do come up can prove their mettle, can show that they can mix it in that top division? Yeah,
absolutely. There normally is one of the three that normally come up do have a settled season and do okay, and then try to build on that and make a right go of staying in the Premiership for over many years. And but like you say, you know, managers have decisions to make when they come up from the Championship. Do I stick with what I've had? Are they good enough to get the goals, you know, the likes of Vokes and that? Are they good enough to get the goals in the Premiership? Or do I go with, you know, household names that have played there before? So it's big questions to be answered.
And I think if you look at the players, the games in the Championship now, the teams in the Championship, Caroline, apart from Brighton, the other three, Wigan, QPR, I can't remember who the fourth, Derby, they've all been in the Premier League. So, you know, if it's not the end of the world to go down, as long as your club is organised and run properly, I think it does give you a chance to come back.
Mark Lawrenson and Frank Sinclair on the race for the title. And the English Premier League always provides drama. And for Sunderland, who in December were rock bottom of the table, it seemed almost certain they'd be relegated. 5 months on, and after beating West Brom 2-0 this week, the Black Cats have survived for another season. Less than a month after manager Gus Poyet said it would be a miracle to survive. And Poyet says it's been the best 5 weeks of his career.
I think that the word that we're going to use for this incredible escape, that it was a miracle. It was something unique. It was something special. Connection on the pitch between the players in the last few games in an incredible way. Connection with the fans every single game in an incredible way. And that is only one result, winning football games.
You've been in football for a long time. Is this the most special 5 weeks you've experienced?
It's the best 5 weeks I ever had, and today is one of the best days of my life, no doubt.
Why is that?
Because I'm passionate, because I care about what I do, because it was a big challenge, an incredible, difficult job, and we done it. But I was brought into the club in a spectacular way, something that is very difficult to repeat. I was saying to other colleagues of you, it's going to be remembered this, and people is going to say, well, Sunderland done it. Now it's possible. It's going to be other teams, they're going to believe that they can do it because of what we've done.
Well, there is a case in point, Mark, where you can change your manager, change things around, and the manager can really lift the team.
Yeah, well, they were also bottom, weren't they, at Christmas, which, apart from West Brom, they're only the second team ever to have actually got out from that particular position. And the thing, I think it took over when Sunderland had 1 point. But the worst thing, I think, was they had a dressing room that just thought the previous manager was raving bonkers. And Di Canio, some of the stuff that was coming out, some of the stuff he was doing, they're going, oh, my goodness, what is this? So, first and foremost, and I'm sure Frank will back me up, you've got to get the dressing room right. You've got to get it sorted as quickly as possible, which he's done. He's got them playing for him. And I thought after the Capital One Cup final display against City, where they played really well but were beaten, I kind of thought they'll push on from that. And the reverse happened, and they got even worse. And that was a point there where we were saying, look, we'll need a miracle. Now, all of a sudden, brought Conor Wickham back on loan, kept changing their formation, eventually stumbled on a formation. Don't forget, they got beat 5-1 at Tottenham, which was probably the lowest point of the season. Then he got beat at home a few days later by Everton, and we went, they've got no chance. And then they went on that absolutely fantastic run, so it can be done.
What do we know, hey? Mark...
that's why we're here.
Mark Lawrenson and Frank Sinclair. Some of us know something. Here with me on the race for the title. And you can voice your opinions too on social media. John Bennett is in the BBC Sport Hub. And John, what have people been saying on the teams relegated this year?
Well, Caroline, we've been asking on our social media pages, out of the 3 relegated teams, who's the most likely to bounce straight back up? You may want to look away now if you're a Cardiff fan. Let's start in Kenya. Azaria in Kenya says it's no longer that easy to bounce straight back up. It's getting tougher for the relegated teams to make an immediate impact and make an immediate return to the Premier League. My take is that none of the 3 teams going down will make it back up immediately. Well, K-Roll in Indonesia says that Fulham will get promoted next season. Cardiff, however, will not taste top-flight football again unless they change back to their original blue strip. Of course, they are playing in red at the moment. And Dominic in South Sudan says Norwich City have the potential to come back to the Premier League next season. And also a bit of support for Fulham. Just had a few messages in from Uganda and Malawi. Jeffrey in Malawi saying Fulham will be the team to bounce straight back up.
At BBC Sports World if you want to get in touch with John and the team. Well, one team who've been in good form this season are Stoke. Their 4-1 victory over Fulham meant they equalled their highest points tally in the Premier League, 47. And this could be their best finish in the table too, with 12 clean sheets this season. Some of the credit has to go to shot stopper Asmir Begovic. And earlier this week, the BBC's Lee James went to Stoke's training ground to speak to him.
Well, the feeling of the club is much more positive. Obviously, last year we didn't finish the season off as well as we should have, especially in the second half. So there was a bit of negativity around the place and just a bit of disharmony, and I think that kind of led to the change of manager. But 12 months on, things are looking much more brighter and much more positive, and we've played really well this year. I know it's been a season of progress, but we've performed really well, especially in the second half of the season, and hopefully with all the positivity and good feeling we can take that into next season as well.
What result has really stood out for you? There's been some tremendous ones, especially here at the Britannia Stadium. What has really stood out for you as your highlight?
That's a tough call. Like you said, we've had some really good moments this year, especially at the Britannia. We're beating some big teams, and the manner in which we did it was especially pleasing. But I think the win against Man United at home, I think we were in the relegation zone going into that game, and that win really gave us a boost to really kick on for the rest of the season, and we've done that. I think since that game we've only lost a couple games, and the results have been very good, and I think that really kick-started our season.
We can't review the season without talking about one incident against Southampton at the Britannia Stadium after 13 seconds, and you score a goal in the Premier League.
Well, that was it. I mean, it's obviously a moment I'll always remember, and it was a special moment, especially for the history books. So it was a fantastic feeling. I enjoyed it, obviously. It's, like I said, it's something I always remember. I kept the ball from the day, got my teammates to sign it, and it'll hold a special place in my house. So it was a fantastic day.
Now, whenever I Google your name, Asmir, it comes up with all kinds of links to all kinds of clubs in the Premier League and across Europe. How do you feel about that? Every transfer window comes around, your name is linked with the top clubs. It must be flattering.
It is very flattering. It's a positive thing. You know, I take it as a huge compliment. Obviously, that big teams and people like that I'm being mentioned too. But most of all, I'm really committed to my job each and every day, and I think that's my main aim, is to get better, work hard, and keep improving as a goalkeeper and as a player. So I think that's the most important thing. You know, what happens in the future, time will tell. But it's nice to be linked with these teams. Obviously, flattering, but you know, I have a huge amount of respect for the people here running Stoke City, and my job is to perform for them, so that's what I'm going to continue to do.
And do you feel you can achieve your ambitions here? How much more do you feel can come from Stoke in the coming seasons?
Well, I mean, if we keep improving, keep progressing, I think this year has been fantastic, and if we can keep working on this and building on it, then why couldn't we compete with some of the biggest teams and maybe push on even further up the table and challenge for trophies as well? So I think there's definitely room for improvement still, and you know, as long as we keep working hard and working on our game and pulling the right direction together, then I think we can achieve some good things.
Asmir Begovic there, what an incredible season for him, Frank.
Yeah.
You know, been a real rock for them at the back, but can they hang on to him?
Well, he's saying all the right things there, which is good. You know, he's being very professional about the situation. But, you know, obviously he's got ambitions, and I'm sure Stoke would not want to stand in his way if he's got an opportunity to progress again in his career. But he's been outstanding, and, you know, full credit to Mark Hughes, really. You know, the job he's done at Stoke, he's changed the way they've played a little bit. They're a little bit more subtle with their approach to games, and he's still been able to get performances as well, and obviously results.
Mark,
the other thing, sorry, I was going to say, yeah, no, he's right, Frank's right, but the other thing about Asmir Begovic, he goes to the World Cup with Bosnia. I mean, if he has an outstanding World Cup,
yeah,
I mean,
the doors open then,
yeah,
didn't they?
Most definitely. Thing was, and he was in the studio the other night with Asmir Begovic and was saying that, you know, the first half of the season was quite difficult because obviously the new management team were trying to make this transition from, you know, humping the ball, long ball, humping it up, to getting the players to play a little bit more. Took a while, but he says now, he said everybody's absolutely au fait with it. And he also said that Eddie Niedzwiecki, the old Chelsea goalkeeper, he said he does most of the coaching. He said he's absolutely fantastic.
Good coach.
Yeah, because every day is completely different, which I don't think was necessarily the way it was under Tony Pulis. He had one way of coaching, which is absolutely fine. It worked for him. But they say it's so much better now.
Yeah.
Well, we've spoken about the bottom of the table. We'll speak about the top of the table too, but there's one team that we can't escape, really, Manchester United. One of the big stories of the season has been their demise. The defending champions currently lie in 7th position, and look at next season without any European football as well, adding to the woes of David Moyes early on. He was then fired as well. All sorts has happened with Manchester United. Some have been smiling on it, Mark Lawrenson.
Yeah, no, I'm not smiling because he's my mate, David Moyes. And I think the problem, Caroline, in all honesty, was that I think the minute he walked through the door at Manchester United, I don't think he got great help from the people behind the scenes because, you know, if you're going to give someone a 6-year contract, you're sort of saying there's a problem here and it needs fixing and it might take a while. And also, I think when he walked into the dressing room, I think straight away some players went, Everton manager coming to manage Man United after Sir Alex Ferguson, just not having it. And I do think that, you know, there's quite a lot of players that are very culpable in terms of the Manchester United performances. David Moyes will tell you himself that didn't win enough games, but by the same token, I just don't think he got the backing from Manchester United that they should have given to him.
Interesting, Frank, in our relegation chat and I'm sure in our title chat as well, we've kind of avoided really the players and the players taking the blame. But as Mark says, cold ball really for Manchester United. Yeah,
not enough have turned up, you know, all season, especially the big name players and the so-called experienced players that they've had in the dressing room. They've not done a job for him, you know, and on and off the pitch, it's been a shambles, really. You know, since he's taken over, and I mean, they've been used to one way for a long time. You know, inside that dressing room, and obviously Moyes comes in with different ideas, and unless your players are open to ideas to, you know, to be on board with you, you know, you're fighting a losing battle.
And I think the other thing as well is that, you know, unless you then bring quite a few players in with you in August, you can then change the dynamic of the dressing room. But, you know, he's always said he went in the dressing room and, you know, apart from what took Fellaini was the only one in August, and that obviously hasn't worked as yet. But you can't go in there firing at all sorts of players that you'd love to do because you're thinking, I need you throughout the course of the season.
Right.
So when I say Manchester United are culpable as well, it's just that they didn't really help him. And I wouldn't mind, but they went through this before when Sir Matt Busby finished. So it was just a really strange situation.
Well, where next for Manchester United? Louis van Gaal has told BBC Sport he wants to become the new manager of United. The former Bayern Munich manager has been the overwhelming favourite for the role since Moyes went back in April. And the Dutch national head coach says he would love the Manchester United job.
It's not, you have to ask the club, not to me.
But you would love the job?
I shall love the job, but we have to wait.
Louis, how big a challenge will it be to return them to success, do you think? How big a job will it be for whoever takes it?
For every coach who takes the job, it's a fantastic challenge. And I hope that I shall be the one, but you have to wait and see.
Ryan Giggs, do you think he should be a part of the future of Manchester United, whoever takes it?
That's the same question as of Mr. Kluivert. How can I answer this question when I'm not the man? Because it can be also another man. You are thinking that I am the man, but the most important thing is that Manchester United is thinking that.
Is there any problem with the negotiations, or is it just that you want to concentrate on this for now? Because we were expecting it today.
I have to focus on my job.
Sure.
I am coach of the Dutch national team. I have waited a long time to be in a World Championship Cup league as now. I have tried that already in 2000. And now, so I have invested 4 years to be on the World Championship.
Will this affect that?
So that's also very important.
He's a great politician, isn't he, Van Gaal?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's obviously something holding the actual appointment of him up. I don't think it's going to change it whatsoever, and I'm sure he'll probably get the job this week. But he's absolutely right. He can't sort of speculate on Manchester United. I don't know if you saw the interview where one of the guys was trying to get something out of him. He said, do you know what Carrington is? And he went, Carrington, and what's Carrington? And the guy went, oh, it's Manchester United's training ground. And he just started laughing, Van Gaal, like he didn't know.
Right.
And so it was just all of a game, wasn't it? But the thing about him is, and if you look at the Bayern Munich team, he started to build that team. So he's a builder of teams. And if you're coming to Manchester United at the moment, you're going to have to build a team.
Yeah.
How much of it is dependent on how well he does at the World Cup or not?
No, I just think his name fits the bill for the job. Basically, you know, he's the one outstanding name that you look at that's not in another job that could come to this football club, and the name is as big as the football club as I coming in as a coach stroke manager. You know, the biggest thing I think is that, you know, last season there was a lot of changes off the pitch, i.e. coaching staff, and that this season there's going to be a lot of changes on the pitch, i.e. question marks to, you know, Ferdinand, Vidic is leaving as well, Ryan Giggs is probably going to go through the door if he doesn't stay on the coaching staff as well. So there'll be a lot of places to be filled, and you know, he knows the game inside out, European.
I can't believe it won't be done by probably midweek.
No, they want it sorted out.
Well, they want it on every single level, and he'll want it sorted out. He doesn't want to go away with the Dutch national team to Brazil and thinking, where am I going after it? Am I going to Manchester United? Am I going to Tottenham? So he'll be saying, look, if you want to do it, get it done.
And just briefly, Frank, as well, in David Moyes, they had a younger manager. In Van Gaal, someone a bit older as well, not necessarily the long-term future of
Very
Manchester
diplomatic, Caroline, that.
A little bit older, yeah. But, you know, he looks fit and healthy, and he looks very active on the training ground there when you see those clips. So, you know, working with the Dutch national team, I'm sure he can handle going into Manchester United's Carrington, as Mark Lawrenson
We'll
just
see him
said.
pulling his boots on, perhaps.
Yeah, don't think so.
Yeah.
Big man for a big job.
He is, but that's what Manchester United need, don't they? They need someone that can flex those muscles, come in, act soon, act quick, and really lift them up, which is what the fans expect as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Mark Lawrenson and Frank Sinclair with me here on the BBC World Service. You can be part of it too. We're at BBC Sports World. Coming up in the next half hour, the race for the title. City's to lose, or will Liverpool find a bit of luck? Let me know what you think. We're on social media at BBC Sports World. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. That's also the place to tell us who's your player of the year, who's shone for you in the Premier League, who's really stood out for you this season. Let me know. We're at BBC Sports World. Welcome to the race for the title with me, Caroline Barker, a special programme building up to the Sunday, the final day of the English Premier League. And for the first time ever, we're simulcasting the show live on BBC World Service Radio, bbc.com/sport, and on digital for UK users only. My guests, former Liverpool defender Mark Lawrenson, and shoring up that back four, former Chelsea and Jamaica defender Frank Sinclair. Hello to you both.
Hi,
how are you?
It is a mammoth season. It has been a mammoth season so far. Perhaps not the last 24 hours we would have wanted, with maybe just the little glimmer of hope for Liverpool. A glimmer for you, Mark. I'm giving you that one.
I'll take glimmer. I'll take glimmer.
You can have that glimmer. It's been one of those seasons where we've had plenty of ups and downs. And for Manchester City, Frank, as well, so long of the season not spent at the top. They've been forever playing catch-up, really. Only 11 days up until this weekend.
They have.
They've been there.
Yeah, they have, absolutely. I mean, 3 or 4 weeks ago, everyone was still at it, and, you know, with a chance, I say everyone, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, you know, with a chance of realistically winning the title. And, you know, they've all dropped points in certain vital games and given each other a chance to get back in it. And that's been the astonishing 3 weeks that we've had of, you know, which way is it going to turn out. And, you know, obviously the last couple of weekends were big blows for Liverpool, which is, you know, effectively, if Man City do the job tomorrow, then, you know, that's how they've lost the title.
And I think City have, sorry to interrupt you, but City have just timed the run absolutely perfectly. I mean, they've only been on top, is it 11 days?
Yeah.
Which, if you said that at the start of the season, you go, there's no chance of that. It'd be a lot longer than that.
A prime athlete. Well, before we start discussing...
Thanks, me?
Yes.
All right, okay.
Before we start discussing who will end up lifting that all-important trophy, Alex South has been taking a look at what has been an exciting week in the title race.
What a difference a few days makes, from the despair of Liverpool to the elation of Manchester City. Only 2 points separates the clubs going into the final weekend, but it feels like so much more. 3 goals up and seemingly cruising, Liverpool came unstuck at Crystal Palace.
They know this was a decisive night. They cannot bear to think about the repercussions. Surely now, it's Manchester City's title.
3-0 up in a game at this level, you know, you got to have that maturity and that game management in the game to see it through, and we didn't do that. So as I said, it was bitterly disappointing, but I think, as I said, Man City now, they've got 2 home games, and I would expect them to go on and win it now.
If the pressure got to Liverpool, then surely the same could happen to Manuel Pellegrini's side, but City made no such mistake, as their late charge for another title shows no signs of stopping.
Manchester City need 1 more point to seal the title, having finally blown away stubborn Aston Villa.
We must win the last game here at home against West Ham. We are not thinking of drawing, we are just thinking on trying to play as we did so far during the whole season here in Etihad. If we play in that way, maybe we can win the title.
The script said the title race would go down to the last day, which it has, but in a season of so many twists and turns, somehow another now seems unlikely.
Some would say others have lost the title. Chelsea and Liverpool's shortcomings have been exposed in recent weeks, as Manchester City look like they're closing in on their 2nd Premier League trophy in 3 years. But if City do get the point they need on Sunday against West Ham here at Eastlands, then they must also be congratulated for staying the course and coming good when it mattered. Alex South, BBC News, Manchester.
Well, the day nearly upon us, the final day of the English Premier League, and what a difference it's been since last year when Manchester United wrapped up the title with 4 games left to play. Great for the neutral to have something still on it, Mark, not so for Liverpool fans.
Yeah, but I think, you know what, even for Liverpool fans, because if you said at the start of the season that, looking at the team they had and the squad they had last April, whatever it was, the 16th, first day of the season, and you said that Liverpool, going into the last game of the season, would have a chance of winning the Premier League, all those Liverpool fans would have gone, yes, thank you very much indeed. Absolutely. And Chelsea probably.
I think Chelsea very similar, you know, with Jose coming back as well. You know, the 2 previous seasons nowhere near the title race. I think 2 seasons ago, 25 points off the winners of the title and 15 or so points off last season. You know, there's been a big improvement there, but realistically, I don't think originally the idea was to be in the title race as long as they were.
And the other thing, you know, I mean, are you into horses? Are you into jump racing? Well, I don't know if you are. Well,
a little too big to be a jockey, but...
Well, you said that, not me, right? but if, you know, in jump racing, they say course and distance. And that's exactly what Manchester City have done.
A real calmness about them as well. Let's take a look at the top of the table. City 2 points clear of Liverpool. It's City's to lose, surely, Frank?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to be honest, you look at the fixtures tomorrow and you'd expect all 3 teams at the top to win their games. You know, Chelsea are playing to try and finish in second place, realistically. But, you know, you'd expect Chelsea to win, and you'd expect Man City, after all the hard work in getting where they are now, not to, you know, disappoint the football club by dropping it now. You said
a calmness about Manchester City, and you're right, and I think it comes from the manager. And I think, you know, the comparison between Pellegrini and Mancini is absolutely massive, because I have a few friends who work at Manchester City and just say the atmosphere is so completely different. Pellegrini talks to absolutely everybody all the time, and Mancini was this kind of thing. He almost felt, I've got to win, I've got to do this, it was always a little bit like that, and there was a little bit of arrogance as well about him, and said, this fella is just, it's like your granddad in charge of your team. He walks up, hey, how you doing? He's always
It's a similar transition to Sunderland's one, you know, where there was with the manager and where they went, and I think Man City's been the same as well.
Mark Lawrenson's pulled out the big guns with his friends at Manchester City. I expect the same from you in just a few moments.
I've got some better than that.
Oh, they'll come. Hang on to them, Mark. Back with you in a moment. Let's hear from another of those big guns, City's captain Vincent Kompany. He's been speaking to the BBC ahead of their final game against West Ham.
Well, first of all, this is perfect for the neutrals, I guess. Nerve-wracking for us. But, yeah, you've been there before, so it's not something new. And if anything, I can only hope it will give us an advantage, but it's definitely something that we've experienced before, so we don't have any excuses, really.
I would imagine you wouldn't expect something quite as dramatic this time.
Anything's possible in football. The last time was, it made me age. That's how stressful it was, but it still remains my best memory in football so far, so if that's what it has to be, then you know, we'll be prepared for it. We certainly won't give anything up.
Is it the Premier League title that's at the foremost of your minds at the beginning of the season? Is that still remain the trophy that's most important, or has it been usurped perhaps by Champions League?
No, it's the Premier League. You start a season, it's 38 games, and it's also the amount of hard games and hard battles you have to go through to get to that level that makes it so much more of a difficult target to reach. I'm conscious of the importance of the Champions League, but the reality is, you know, once you get out of the group stages, if you have a lucky draw for the next round, you might be in the quarterfinals before you've even really had to break a sweat. So now the hardest one is the Premier League, but obviously, you know, that makes it so much more special.
You had a different manager last time around. What are the differences between Roberto Mancini and Manuel Pellegrini?
I think they have a different approach towards the game itself. You know, we were well organised under Roberto Mancini, and more importantly, we were a successful team. But I think that it's become about more now. Being a successful team is maybe not enough. It's about setting a standard, not just for ourselves, but for the youth as well that's coming through at Manchester City, and hopefully be you know, recognised as a team in the future that plays a certain style of football, and that's hard to do, but that's the target we've set for ourselves.
What a difference a couple of weeks make. That wide smile of Vincent Kompany replaces Steven Gerrard. Those images we saw of Steven Gerrard in that huddle for the Liverpool team, getting them going. This is ours to lose. And then the slip-up, of course, and they go on and lose that advantage to the point they're at now.
Well, I think the thing as well for Liverpool, I mean, they had that fantastic run of 11 straight wins. And it wasn't just the fact that they'd won, it was the way they'd won. And, well, the football was great. And I think they were everybody's favourite second club. But you know, when you look at Manchester City, they've had to deal with the Champions League. Liverpool weren't in Europe, and they went out the cups early. Manchester City as well won the Capital One Cup. So they're starting to play and catch up in terms of the league games. So I do think they will win it. And, you know, they do deserve it. You can't be lucky and win the Premier League title. It's 38 games. I think as Vincent Kompany was saying there, it is a slog. It really seriously is a slog. And they've got all these other hurdles along the way. So, you know, we're going to have to congratulate Manchester City and say they've done a good job. Strength
and depth in the squad that Manchester City have, that Liverpool at sometimes have been found wanting this season, Frank.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, the main thing for Man City is, you know, Aguero hasn't played as big a part as, you know, he could have done as well, which I think if you had had a fit Aguero all season, Man City might have tied up the league a few weeks ago. And but other players have come to the forefront. The new signings they've had have scored goals, and they've got them. Dzeko's got goals as well. But you know, like Vincent Kompany says, they're setting a standard at that football club. And you know, when you talk about stuff like the Player of the Year and stuff like that, you know, for all season long, my vote has been always heading towards Suarez. If I was doing the vote now, you know, Toure would come to mind with the way he's been over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
You're not. We're doing that a little bit later. Hold that thought. We'll come back to your player of the year.
You've gone early, Frank.
Yeah, as always. It is a remarkable achievement either way for Liverpool this season. However, manager Brendan Rodgers believes that anything can happen on the final day of the season.
Yeah, it's certainly not over. You know, first and foremost, we can only concentrate on our job. You know, and our job is to win the game. I think Alan will come as well, and he'll want to finish his season strong. So we know that it's a tough game, but the combination of us at home and our supporters has been fantastic. And for us to look to get 16 wins out of 19 cometh the weekend would pencil in a great return for us at home. And for them, West Ham got some really talented players. You know, if you can go to Tottenham and win 3-0, you can certainly go to Manchester City and win. And especially you get guys like Big Andy and that up front with the quality that he has. You know, they got a real good defensive record. You know, 14 odd clean sheets, I think. So it shows that they're a very, very difficult team to play against. So, but our focus is on ourselves.
There's a great irony in the fact that Liverpool and Brendan Rodgers are relying on Andy Carroll as his West Ham side go up against Manchester City.
And Stuart Downing.
And Stuart Downing, of course.
And maybe even Kevin Nolan, who's, I know he's not played for Liverpool, but he's a Red.
Anyone else you want to throw in?
No, I think that's the only three I can remember.
Yeah.
Have you seen with West Ham this week is that Sam's given the players 4 days off. So I don't know whether that's going to work for you, against you. Judging by the players I played with, it would definitely work against us because Lord alone knows where the players. Yeah, they've got nothing to play for. But I just think the thing about that, and I think Liverpool appreciate that, is City only need to draw, and it's completely different.
Well, Brendan Rodgers is trying to galvanise the West Ham team there with that talk there. You know, he's talking more about West Ham's strengths and stuff to try and make them believe they've got a chance of winning that game there. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see how they do approach that game.
We've heard this week that the framework has been drawn up on Brendan Rodgers' new contract. He has done phenomenally well for Liverpool this season. I mean, if he'd won the title, a shoe-in for Manager of the Year, but regardless of that, he's performed fantastic.
Well, I think he just said that, you know, if they win tomorrow, that's 16 out of 19 games. Well, if you double that, which is the course of the season, that's 96 points. So you'd have run away with the league. And his problem is that he's only got a relatively small squad. I mean, you know, on the bench, he's just one or two players who, quite honestly, he probably wouldn't want to play. So that makes his achievement even better. Not that there's any problem about the new contract. What the Americans are going to do, they're not going to give him a new contract. So from his point of view, that's great. What they now need to do is back him in the summer because they're in the Champions League, and now all of a sudden, you know, you're going to be playing at certain weeks. You're going to be playing, bigger group. So you're going to be playing weekend, midweek. quite often. If you can get through to knockout stages, even more so. I think it's quality rather than quantity that he's going to need in terms of players in.
Arguably another side that need a few players in over the summer. Chelsea, your old boys, Frank. Jose Mourinho throughout the season said, you know what, we're not going to win the title. They haven't won it. He got that right. What do they need to improve on for next season?
Well, it's been the same conversation for the last 2 years at the club, and, you know, we've not had a goal scorer that will get you 30 goals in the Premier League that, you know, could make you challenge for the title, and it's been the same again. And Jose's brought in Samuel Eto'o, you know, as a striking option, and it hasn't worked as far as I'm concerned, as in, you know, the goals that he's come back with. But, you know, the other end of the pitch, Chelsea have been fantastic, the best defensive record in the league. The back four's been phenomenal this season, and, you know, there's the young, these guys are young. It's a young group that Jose's taken on board this season, and I think they need a bit more experience and obviously need a striker that's going to score goals.
Be wary of Chelsea next year.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, I mean, Jose comes out with some rubbish at times and we all laugh about it, but he is a really, really good coach stroke manager. And to get them, Chelsea, in a position where they can still finish second without a relatively, you know, top-class striker is a major achievement.
Well, after a slip in form, Chelsea's title dreams are over. Let's hear how manager Jose Mourinho feels about it.
We knew when the season started that was very, very possible that this was going to happen. And for some teams, the third position is something that people lives with it in a happy way. We don't. I don't. And that's why in this moment we are thinking about next season, and while you are going next week to turn your focus to the World Cup, which is normal, we are turning our focus not to the World Cup but to the preparation of the next season.
I'm glad that Jose Mourinho is not focusing on the World Cup just yet. Perhaps one day with England, you never know. Chelsea, then, he says that they need a killer striker, but could also arguably lose John Terry and Ashley Cole as well. Do you think they'll still be there next season,
No,
Frank?
well, for me, John Terry's been as good as anybody in the league this season as a centre-half, and he's, as well as that, probably last season he had the longest rest he's had in his career as well, which could possibly give him another season at the football club. And I'd be surprised if they don't do a deal to keep him, especially Ashley Cole. Question mark, because, you know, I know Ashley quite well and spoke to him a few weeks ago, and he's obviously been disappointed. He's not played a lot of football, but for him, he's had the opportunity to play recently to give himself an opportunity to go to the World Cup. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Ashley went out the door.
When he's played brilliantly, Ashley Cole, though, hasn't he?
No, he's been great.
Yeah.
It's been great, and you know, as Frank says, had a long time out to sort of kick in his heels, and he must be thinking, what have I done wrong? But the form of Azpilicueta as well has been outstanding. Listen, if you go to John Terry, and basically he's just a Chelsea man. Even if you said to him, can you take a little bit of a drop in terms of your money, you're not telling me he wouldn't sign for another year.
Yeah, he would do.
All day long.
And you need that if you're going to blend that youth and experience.
It's a very young squad, you know. When you take the likes of Petr Cech, Ashley Cole, Frank Lampard and John Terry out of it, the rest of them are world-class players and, you know, household names, but they're very young. And I think you need that, you know, the foursome that have been at Chelsea for so long to, you know, guide these players and show them the Chelsea way before they move out the door.
And if you ask Gary Cahill how big an influence has John Terry been on him, would be absolutely massive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's lost without him, isn't he?
Well, he's brought him on, and, you know, he's arguably one of the best defenders now in the country, Cahill.
Those are thoughts of Frank Sinclair and Mark Lawrenson, but you can join in the debate on social media too. John Bennett is in our BBC Sports Hub. And, John, who did the public say will win that title?
Well, I have to say, Caroline, people still believe, our viewers and listeners are still believing that Liverpool could win the title. They think there'll be a slip-up for Manchester City and maybe a final twist in what's been an amazing season. Susan in Zambia, though, disagrees. Let's see what she's been saying. The league is destined for Manchester, she says. City's game against West Ham is just a formality. To me, they are already English champions. Selwyn in Zambia, though, is one of those viewers and listeners that believes in Liverpool. Liverpool will claim the title. Nolan, Carroll, Downing and company will wreck Man City celebrations. Remember, Downing and Carroll used to play for Liverpool, as Mark was saying. And Lamin in Gambia says, I don't think Man City will make any mistakes and will grab the title. But come next year, I think we can work out who he supports. Manchester United will take their title back. You can get in touch with us on social media at BBC Sports World, Caroline.
Thank you, John. Amazing how many Liverpool fans there are around the world who are just convinced they'll still win it.
But also, Caroline, when you consider they haven't won the league for 20-odd years, and the other thing as well is there's always Manchester United fans as well. I don't think we actually realise how big those two teams are across the globe.
The global presence, undoubted, of those two teams. But for Man City, again, winning another title will certainly raise their profile again around the world.
Yeah, absolutely, which they need that to go with their plans that they've got in place, you know, to improve that football club. They need to go even more global, supporters-wise. And but I can understand why Liverpool supporters, because there's been so many twists and turns, you can understand why Liverpool supporters, you know, are not counting out the West Ham doing a job on Man City tomorrow and Liverpool winning.
Maybe the twist and turn tomorrow is there's no twist and turn.
Don't say that.
Well, just did.
Tune in anyway.
Too late.
No,
I'm not saying don't tune in all the time, but maybe that's the twist and turn.
Glad you're on message, Mark. That's the right
I am so on message.
So on message. We talked about then the race for the title, but aside from those top three teams, your team of the year, Frank Sinclair, don't all come from that top team, do you think?
No, I mean, I looked at the PFA Team of the Year, and it was pretty much spot on, which you normally are when your colleagues voting for you. Yeah. And you know, the one big surprise for me was John Terry not being in it, and not because, you know, I'm a Chelsea fan and stuff like that, and played at the football club. I just think as a pairing, Gary Cahill and John Terry have been the best in the country, and I don't understand how people could split them two up. And you know, for me, I went with Shaw. Left back, some people would say Baines, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited about watching Shaw play, and you know, Zabaleta on the other side has been outstanding for me. And then you look at the midfield players that you know, Hazard got voted by his colleagues as you know, young player of the year, and then you've got obviously the likes of Toure and Gerrard. Suarez and Sturridge is no surprise to anybody. They've been the best two up front. You know, it picks itself pretty much.
The Professional Footballers Association with their awards of the year and their team of the year, as you mentioned. But for Mark, would you agree with most of that? I mean, I'd go perhaps for Chelsea defence and Liverpool front line, and you'd be made, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, but I think most generally, and Frank's absolutely right, is that the players don't get it wrong because they play against these guys week in, week out. And you know, Vincent Kompany is an outstanding player that he was. Has he been better than John Terry this year? Sorry, he hasn't, and he's missed loads of games. But generally, there's a little bit nitpicking if one or two. But I think there's one thing about players: they know about players. Yeah. That's the difference.
You may regret that comment because there are lots of Vincent Kompany fans.
No, he's a world-class player. But you know, over the course of the season, which it is, I think John Terry's been better. Well, listen, they've conceded less goals. Yeah. That's my argument, and Frank's.
Absolutely.
He's behind you all the way. I'm not joining in. Those are the thoughts of Mark and Frank then. But we've gone through the team of the year. But who's been your player of the year? Before we get the thoughts of our guest, John Bennett is in the BBC Sport Hub. Lots of argument about this one, John.
Yes, there's a split, Caroline. In the blue corner, support for Manchester City's Yaya Toure. In the red corner, support for Luis Suarez. Let's see what you've been saying. Alioune in Senegal says Suarez seems to be the best player of the year. He's shown an outstanding level of skill and he pushes up the effort of his teammates. But Karim in Sierra Leone disagrees. Why did Yaya Toure not win this year's award? He did everything, only not score more than Suarez, but he scored more classic goals and he rose to the big occasions. Toure's already won a cup and he's on course to win the league again. What a shame. Gerald in Zambia, though, is back in the Luis Suarez camp. Suarez missed the opening 6 matches, but breaks the scoring records and tops the assists. Do we still need to debate this issue? Gerald, I'm afraid we still do need to debate because there's a split. Toure and Suarez. Back to you, Caroline.
Of course we still need to debate it. We've got minutes left of the programme to fill. Luis Suarez, it's a good point made, isn't it? He did miss those games at the start of the season and yet has still been phenomenal.
I'll tell you what, I bet Yaya Toure voted for Luis Suarez. I bet he did. No, he did, because Suarez has been... The other thing about Suarez, it's been a redemption year as well because of what happened in previous seasons, etc.
Yeah. Such an incredible turnaround.
Fantastic. He has been absolutely fantastic. And I think the big problem with most Liverpool supporters, they're frightened to shout his name from the rooftops a little bit too much because they think Madrid are going to come and get him. I think Benzema's going to leave. And if you look around, Caroline, who are you going to take from Europe to replace Benzema to play with Bale and Ronaldo? And I think there's two. And one's not very far from here, which is Aguero, and the other one's about 30 miles down the road in Liverpool, which is Suarez. And Liverpool fans are frightened to death that he's going to leave the football club.
What a team that would be if they could get hold of him. Not going to happen, though, Liverpool fans. We're going to say that. Frank, for you, Toure got a mention there too. Time and time again, he's shown his consistency. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and obviously in the last couple of weeks, he's had some special performances and goals as well to add to it, which has made him, you know, I think the closest option as well as Suarez in recent weeks and that. But for me, over the length of the season, there's only been one name on the tip of the tongue of everybody, and that has been Luis Suarez.
And he's never stopped... Well, no, I don't think... Well, Gerrard obviously had a mention. But the thing about Suarez as well is didn't start the first 5 games. Sturridge was out for ages, and he didn't even stop him scoring. And the goals he scored have been unbelievable. He's never scored a tap-in. They've been absolutely unbelievable. He reminds you a little bit of Van Persie last year at Manchester United. It's been the difference, certainly for Liverpool anyway. And PR-wise as well, I'd say he's done everything right off the pitch, you know, because he was the most hated man in the country last season, wasn't he? And he's turned that around for his fellow companions to vote for him as well, which just shows. They say his wife sort of sorted him out. Always takes a good woman, Caroline. All the insight with Mark Lawrenson. He knows that, having sat next to me. One word, Liverpool or City, and I mean one word. Frank? City. City. Oh, it hurts so much. It does hurt. I'm telling you, it's killing me. Thank you both very much for your company. Been a real pleasure talking through the race for the Premier League title with both of you, Frank Sinclair and Mark Lawrenson. My thanks to our guests. So that brings an end to the show. But the title race, it's just the beginning. Join Lee James on the BBC World Service from 14 hours GMT on Sunday for every important kick of the action. And you can follow the climax to the Premier League season on bbc.com/sport. And, of course, here on BBC World News across the day. You can, as well, react to every kick too. Join us on social media. We're at BBC Sports World. Until next time, goodbye.